The Wall Street rally resumes with the S&P 500 closing at its highest level since August. The tech-heavy Nasdaq also marks its best close so far this year. The Street now looks ahead to the Fed policy next week. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific trade largely higher ahead of the release of the Chinese trade data for May. The SGX Nifty also indicates a positive start for the Indian market. And oil comes off the lows after the EIA says it expects Brent crude to average just below $80 a barrel later this year. Prices have been volatile since Saudi Arabia announced a big output cut. And the World Bank says the global economy is in a precarious position, cuts global growth projections to 2.1% for 2023 from 3.1% in 2022. But that is better than earlier forecasts of 1.7%. It also sees India's growth slowing to 6.3% from over 7% last year. General Electric and Hindustan Aeronautics set to manufacture fighter jet engines in India. Sources say the Biden administration has given permission for GE to jointly produce the engines in India ahead of Prime Minister Modi's U.S. visit later this month. Contours of what is likely to be a multi-billion-dollar deal are being worked out. That's an exclusive. Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we have. There's lots to track in terms of, what's going on globally. So we will get to all of that in just a minute. But first up, take a look at the Asian markets because most of them are in the green and trading well in the green right now. So gains this morning clearly led by the Hong Kong markets. You have the Hang Seng Index, which is seeing an over 240-point kind of move this morning. 1.2% higher over there, and it's been strong from the get-go. The Taiwanese index also holding up quite well. It's a near 0.5% gain that we're seeing on the Taiwanese index. And across the board, whichever way you look at it, Asia is looking quite strong, barring perhaps the Nikkei markets, which have actually slipped even further right now. So the Japanese market is seeing cuts of 1.2% right now. But remember, this is a market that, in spite of that, has rallied, 23% in this year. So in 2023 so far. So do keep that in mind for Japan. Straight seeing a little bit of a red. Shanghai is up, around 0.5% as well. So looking quite good across Asia as we kickstart things. The SGX Nifty will also come up for you, and it is indicating that the start will be positive. Although we have come off the highs a tad, it is still around a 33-point gain on the SGX Nifty. So that's what's happening across Asia. But let's also talk about the U.S. markets then, because Wall Street ended yesterday's trading session higher. The Dow closed with just a minor gain, around 10 points higher there. The S&P 500 finished around 0.25% in the green. It actually closed at its 9-month high, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq also ended around 0.4% in the green. So good close on Wall Street. The Street now really looks forward to the Fed June policy, right? That is due to come out next week, and that is the big cue that we're working with for global markets. On the crypto front as well, there's some interesting news. The SEC has sought an emergency order to freeze Binance's U.S. assets. We have CNBC's Kate Rogers, who's here to bring us a wrap of all of that action from the U.S.
Stocks trading slightly higher across the board on Wall Street. The Dow closed fractionally higher, finishing the day up 10 points. The S&P ended in positive territory, ending the session 0.25% higher. And the tech-heavy Nasdaq was the best-performing index today, finishing nearly 50 points higher. The SEC suing crypto platform Coinbase in Manhattan federal court, accusing the company of operating as an unregistered exchange and broker. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler telling CNBC that the platform was, quote, a web of deception and conflicts. The move comes one day after the SEC sued Binance and its founder. Coinbase shares down 12% on this session. And the PGA Tour agreeing to merge with Saudi-backed rival Live Golf in a deal that would see the competitors squash pending litigation and move forward as a larger golf enterprise. Live Golf had been spending hundreds of millions of dollars to lure golfers, but had not seen much success or viewers in the U.S. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
All right, Kate, thanks a lot for filling us in with all of that action. But like we were mentioning, the key cue to track now is the FOMC meet next week. So ahead of that, let's listen into some important commentary coming in from Meera Pandit of JP Morgan Asset Management, as well as former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan on the Fed's rate trajectory, as well as their inflation outlook.
By the time we get to July, they're going to have two CPI prints in hand, which if we think about May and June of last year, were very hot. So on a year-over-year basis, that could bring inflation below 4% by the middle of the summer. And if that is the case, they'll have the data in hand to actually pause for sure. But I'd also say if they wanted to hike at this point, if we think about where inflation is the most sticky, services and particularly in rents, there's not that much that additional hikes can really do about that because services are not all that interest rate sensitive. If we see a hike, you're not going to cancel your dinner reservation. And if we think about rents, of course, they are very interest rate sensitive. So at this point, I'm not sure that there's that added benefit for additional hikes.
The problem really is that we have a world which is not slowing right now, certainly in the industrial world. And, central banks desperately need their economies to slow a little more to bring down inflation. Inflation has come down, but it is leveling off in some ways. And so I think the jury is still out on how much more they need to do. It's possible that the Fed pauses this time around, but says this doesn't mean that we've stopped. We're just taking a look at the economy. And they may well have to do more. So I am not so optimistic that, things will start improving later in the year. We first got to get inflation down. Fed is not done. I think that is that's the message the Fed will send out. Yes, we are not hiking this time. We're taking our time to take a look at what's really going on. It'll give us another month and a half to see that. And then we'll decide whether we pause again or we hike. Currently, the reason they have to keep going is because the economies are chugging along at such a dramatic pace, even though we've seen 500 basis points in rate hikes. Of course, the real interest rate is still relatively low.
Okay, that's a very important opinion that we are tracking, and that's everything that we're looking at globally. But let's now talk about all of the domestic cues that you should track as we get into this fresh trading session. Nigel, Rima, and Surbhi are all here to take us through the trade setup this morning. Guys, a very good morning to all of you. Rima, let me come to you first. We saw a very flat close yesterday. What should we track this morning?
Well, the SGX Nifty is suggesting a positive start, which means markets are likely to go back above that 18,600 mark. But this 18,600 to 18,700 has turned out to be a bit of a hurdle zone, a resistance level. Just take stock of the last couple of trading days, and you would see there have been 4 or 5 days that the markets have gone above 18,600 but unable to conquer it. On most days, the markets are ending up, closing at the lower end, except yesterday, where it was that late surge which pushed the Nifty towards that 18,600. So we're going to watch whether the markets can decisively conquer this wall of worry between 18,600 to 18,700. US markets, as we've been listening to, turned out to be a pretty flat close, but there the key standout was the Russell 2000 performance. The Russell 2000 index gaining 2.7%. Remember, investors were worried that the entire US market rally was driven by a handful of stocks, particularly some of these chip and AI makers. But now with the Russell 2000 index, which is more of a small cap index, doing quite well, the hope is that the US market rally is broadening out. In terms of the Asian market context, it's the Hang Seng and the Chinese markets which are doing pretty well, particularly the Hang Seng yesterday as well. Many of the China listed shares on Wall Street rally close to about 3.6%. There are expectations of some stimulus, plus US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken will be traveling to Beijing in the coming weeks to normalize relations. So a combination of these factors is spurring gains in Hang Seng and China this morning. In terms of flows, very muted, on both sides. So pretty much offsetting each other. The FIs bought 400 crores. The DII sold close to about 500 crore in the cash market. But, we're going to watch out how today goes. Tomorrow could be more of a decisive session for our markets with the policy. Back to you.
All right, Rima, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those cues. Let's also talk about the stocks that you should have on your radar. News flow is a little bit thin after the earnings season, but Surbhi, take us through what we should watch.
Hi, morning, Pavitra. As you said, news flow is a little thin, so I have a few stocks on my radar. Torrent Power, they signed an MOU with the government of Maharashtra for hydropower projects with a capacity of 5,700 megawatt. Engineers India, they get orders worth 21 crores from NALCO and JSPL. GMR Airports Infra will also be on my radar as the group announces divestment of 8,18,000 square feet warehouse facility located in their Hyderabad airport. Apart from this, general insurance companies will also be in focus as their monthly business data is out. So for ICICI Lombard, their May premium is up 21%, and for Star Health Insurance, their May premium is up 16%.
All right, Surbhi, thanks a lot for getting us the details on all of these stocks. Hindustan Aeronautics could also be another one to watch for on the back of that deal with GE that we were mentioning. In fact, we'll get Parikshit to bring us some more details on that in just a bit. But finally, let me hand it over to Nigel, who is looking at all of the cues from the futures and options space. Hi, Nigel. What should we track?
Well, morning. Last evening, in fact, in the final hour of trade, we saw a bit of an uptick, but that was because the financial Nifty services index, that played out expiry. You pull up the intraday chart, that'll tell you a perfect picture. And that's what resulted in the Nifty moving back towards that 18,600 odd mark. One intraday indicator that I was looking at was the Nifty futures. The premium out there was more than 100 rupees. That came down to around 70 rupees. So you're wondering whether or not there was some short positions getting added. That wasn't the case, actually. There was some unwinding of long positions, both on the Nifty, and it predominantly came in from the FI basket, because the FIs yesterday, they unwound close to around 13,000 long contracts, which brings the long positioning now down to around 46%. What about the options data? Well, we have the highest open interest at around 18,600 call and the 18,500 put. Both of them have open interest of more than a crore shares. Also, that's giving you a bit of a range. The near-term range that you're looking at is on the downside. If you're buying closer to around 18,450, well, you're making some money. And on the upside, well, 18,670, that's been a bit of a resistance zone. Let's see whether or not we can get past that. The SGX Nifty suggesting, a bit of a positive start. The problem, though, is those deficit monsoon concerns that continues to plague. However, on the global front, now, in fact, it appears that the globe is factoring in a lower probability of a Fed rate hike, which will be good news. So let's see how this goes. But for the time being, I think the Nifty continues to remain in that 220-point range. Back to you.
Okay, Nigel, thanks a lot for getting us all of those cues that you're looking at. But with that, we are going to get into a short break on the show. Our first here. But when we return, like we were telling you, General Electric and HAL are all set to manufacture fighter jet engines in India. So we're going to bring you the exclusive details in just a bit.
What does your investment portfolio look like without gold? Incomplete. Because as a gold owner, you have the power to make bold decisions. To balance risks and returns. The power to buy and sell, right at your fingertips. Making gold your strategic advantage.
Without which, your portfolio is incomplete.
Power your portfolio with gold. World Gold Council.
Who said you need 4 doors for your fam?
Just cut the crap, man.
The surprisingly spacious MG Comet EV. The no-nonsense car.
दुनिया में कुछ लोग कहते हैं और कुछ लोग करते हैं। जब कहा गया देश में सोलर पावर सफल नहीं हो सकता, तो हमने सुना नहीं, उसे सफल कर दिखाया। कहा देश का सबसे बड़ा पावर प्लांट बनाना इम्पॉसिबल, तो हमने पॉसिबल कर दिया। बोला कोने कोने तक बिजली पहुंचाना किसी के बस की बात नहीं, हमने पहुंचा दी। सवाल उठे एनवायरमेंट फ्रेंडली गैस सब तक कैसे पहुंचेगी? हमने वो भी पहुंचा दी। कहा तो ये भी गया पैकेज फूड बिजनेस हमसे नहीं हो पाएगा, लेकिन हमने कर दिखाया। बातें उठी सीमेंट सेक्टर में हम कभी स्ट्रांग नहीं बन सकते, तो हमने सुना नहीं, बन के दिखाया। चर्चा हुई देश में इतना बड़ा पोर्ट बनाना असंभव, हमने संभव कर दिखाया। और जब कहा गया देश के एयरपोर्ट्स इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स के नहीं हो सकते, तब भी हमने सुना नहीं, कर दिए। मुश्किलों की नहीं सुनते, हम करके दिखाते हैं। अदानी हम करके दिखाते हैं.
Keeping up with the pace of life is not easy. To find the perfect balance, we need to savor the pause. See? It never ends.
Yes, it's okay for us to nod for everything. Because we are parrots. Yes, but your wealth manager? Shouldn't be doing that. You know?
Choose Nuvama. We only do what's right for you and your money. Nuvama. Let's do it right.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. An important story now. India's defense sector is set to get a boost. The White House has given an in-principle approval to General Electric to jointly produce fighter jet engines with India's Hindustan Aeronautics. With this, the final modalities of the deal are still being worked out. But Parikshit is here with what he's picking up so far on this deal. Parikshit?
Well, yes, this will be a mega defense deal that will be announced when Prime Minister Modi visits the United States for a state visit. And this kind of collaboration is really unprecedented because this kind of a technology transfer has not happened between US and any ally for that matter. So having said that, an in-principle agreement has been reached by both sides. What is significant to note that in 2012, GE and HAL had signed an agreement on collaborating and co-producing jet engines. But the government was not happy with the terms of the agreement, especially related to technology transfer. We wanted greater technology transfer. We now are given to believe by our sources that the terms are now agreeable to the Indian government, and this deal is much better than what had been agreed upon in 2012, and a substantial amount of technology transfer will happen to HAL. When it comes to the site for engine manufacturing, well, an engine unit is already functional in Koraput, Odisha by HAL, and it is possible that this could be one of the locations for co-production. The technology transfer is likely to happen in phases according to reports, and the modalities of the agreements, the payments, the timings of transfer, all of that are being worked on. We believe that the Indian private sector, especially the MSMEs, will significantly gain from it. According to sources, at least 600 MSMEs could benefit from orders that HAL could give as a result of this deal.
All right, Pariksha, thanks a lot for getting us all of the details. Important stock to watch for today. By the way, HAL did very well in trade yesterday as well. It was up almost 4%. So this will be an important one to watch for. But with that, some more news coming in. The World Bank, in its latest forecast, says that the global economy is in a precarious position and also highlights the risk of financial stress in emerging markets as well as developed economies amid elevated global interest rates. So in its Global Economic Prospects report, the World Bank says that global growth has slowed down sharply and it is projected to decelerate from 3.1%, this is what we saw in 2022, to 2.1% for 2023. That is, however, better than its earlier forecast of 1.7%. So I do want to point that out. It also sees India's growth slowing from 6.3% that we saw last year to over 7%, 6.3% this year from the around 7% which we had last year. So those are the World Bank's forecasts as they stand right now. And that is something that is important to track as well. But with that, another piece that we're looking at, venture capital firm Sequoia has announced that it is splitting into 3 entities. The US, China and India businesses will operate independently henceforth. And the India and South Asia arm have been rebranded as Peak 15 Partners. The firm will continue to manage $9.2 billion across 13 funds, and it will invest in startups using the $2.5 billion of uninvested capital that remains in Sequoia's corpus. Remember, Sequoia also hopes to complete the separation by March of 2024. So they're looking at it in less than a year's time. That's important news. But with that, it is time for another break. When we come back, we're looking at all of the action from the commodities market. Stay tuned.
I'm slow. I'm a tortoise. But your wealth managers, they shouldn't be as slow, you know?
Choose Nuvama. We move at the right pace because we only do what's right for you and your money. Nuvama. Let's do it right.
Keeping up with the pace of life is not easy. To find the perfect balance, we need to savor the pause. See? It never ends.
What if you could get your goods to the right place at the right time all the time? With IBM Consulting, AI-powered software can help automate your supply chain so products can be ordered, produced, and delivered more efficiently. What will you create? IBM. Let's create.
नई कार खरीदने से पहले को चेक करें और 36,000 तक बचाएं।
अभी और कितने चक्कर लगाने पड़ेंगे सर जी?
आप इतनी सी बात क्यों नहीं समझते सर जी? आप हमारा ध्यान रखो, हम आपका ध्यान रखेंगे। 9501 200 200 ये तो
एंटी करप्शन एक्शन लाइन।
मैडम जी आप बेकार में परेशान हो रहे हो। मैं कराता हूँ ना 2 दिन में आपका काम। आप तो बस चढ़ा देना, घर बैठे आ जाएगा आपका लाइसेंस। आपको ड्राइविंग टेस्ट की भी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। पक्का जी पक्का।
तो आपने एक नंबर लिखिए, जब बन जाएगा तो उस पे कॉल करिएगा 9501 200 200 एंटी करप्शन एक्शन लाइन।
अगर आपसे भी कोई रिश्वत मांगे तो कॉल करें 9501 200 200। एंटी करप्शन एक्शन लाइन से पिछले 1 साल में अब तक 300 से ज्यादा भ्रष्टाचारी गिरफ्तार हो चुके हैं। पंजाब में रिश्वत लेने वालों की अब खैर नहीं।
पंजाब के लोगों को ये संदेश देना चाहता हूँ, पंजाब को भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त बनाना हमारा वादा ही नहीं, गारंटी है।
A road trip in a CNG car.
Where will all the luggage go?
OMG! It's CNG! Big boot, big appeal, big reaction. OMG! It's the Altroz iCNG.
Welcome back. As promised, we're going to talk about the space that Manisha is tracking today with commodities. Manisha, what do you have on your radar this morning?
Pavitra, a lot of things really, and it is all going to be about 13th and 14th of June, because on 13th you have the US inflation numbers coming in, the CPI data comes in that day, and 14th you'll have the US monetary policy being released, and as of now the Fed tools show 79% of a probability of a pause in rate hikes and a 50% probability that there could be a rate hike of 25 basis points for the month of July. And that's exactly what the commodity markets are working with right now. So you have seen the gold prices holding firm at around the $1,960 per ounce there. Gold actually has been trading the range of $1,950 on the lower side to $1,980 on the higher side, and the markets are waiting for this range to break to be able to trade further here. In the metal sector, we have seen most of the metals extend their rebound from the lows. So copper prices have gained up yet again 0.5% overnight and moving away from their 6-month lows. Most of the negative news is factored in by the metal prices now, but it is about the escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war that seems to be bothering the space. But even from there, it could be about the supply chain disruptions coming in for some of these commodities, and that has been supportive. That is the case for the crude oil prices also. Off its highs, definitely, but the markets will watch out on what the OPEC and allies do by the time the month of May ends. They have promised a cut of 3.6 million barrels per day. If you see that, then you clearly are looking at higher highs for crude prices.
Okay, Manisha, thanks a lot for getting us all of that action from the commodity space. But with that, we're going to wind down on this edition of Power Breakfast with the news that most Asian markets are in the green this morning. Although there has been a bit of a slip, the SGX Nifty has also come off just around 13 points in the green for the SGX Nifty. Thanks for tuning into Power Breakfast. We have Bazaar Morning Call after this break to take you through all of the action.